Hello yarn lovers! Today I'm going to show you how to crochet the granny stitch without needing to sew in all those extra tails. So I'm going to show you exactly how to crochet the granny stitch and a trick to reduce all of those ends. So I'm just using some Aran weight yarn, which is the equivalent of US worsted, and a 5mm hook. You can use any weight yarn you like, just use the hook size recommended on your yarn ball band. So I'm going to start by putting a slip knot on my hook. And for the granny stitch, you want to chain a multiple of 3 plus 1. So you're just going to count in threes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And keep chaining until your chain is as wide as you want your project to be, or your blanket, or whatever you're making. And then you want to add one extra stitch. So I'm just going to make a small swatch to show you how to do the stitch today. So we're going to start by putting a double crochet in the 4th chain from hooks. You want to count your chains, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to put a double crochet in there. We're then going to skip the next 2 chains, 1, 2, and put 3 double crochet into the following chain. That's 1, 2, and 3. And we're just going to repeat this across. So skip the next 2 chains and then 3 double crochet. This is also known as a granny cluster or granny stitch. So it's 3 double crochet all into the same stitch. So you're just going to repeat this across. So skip the next 2, granny cluster in that next stitch, so you keep going until you get to the last 3 chains, the last 3 stitches. We're going to skip 2 and then put 2 double crochet into that last chain. Like so. Now if you're going to continue with the same colour, you would chain 3 and turn. Now we want to look at our stitches. We can see here we've got 2 stitches here at the beginning, and then we can see there's a space formed here. So we're going to work straight into that space with the granny cluster. That's 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to continue and put 3 double crochet into each of these spaces between the clusters. It's a very easy stitch to memorize, perfect for TV crochet. So we're just coming up to the last space. We're going to put another granny cluster in that space. It's 3 double crochet all into that same space. And then if you look at the beginning, we've got 1 stitch at the beginning on this row, this chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. So we want to end in the same way. So we're going to put double crochet into the top of that chain 3. Like so. Now if you want to change colours, if you're changing colours every few rows and using lots of colours, you are going to end up with lots of ends. So I'm going to show you a little trick of how you can change colours without needing to sew any extra tails in. So what you're going to do is just elongate the loop on your hook till it's roughly about 1 inch. And then you're going to cut that loop. Pull out that yarn and then just unpick that last stitch that you did. So put your hook into the last stitch of the granny cluster, pull back that stitch, and now with this tail here we're going to tie a magic knot. So you want to have the tail of your old yarn going in one direction and the tail of your new yarn going in the other direction. And we're simply going to use the new yarn to tie a knot around the old yarn and the old yarn to tie a knot around the new yarn. Let's just take the old yarn first and we're going to tie a knot around the new yarn. So we're just going to bring it over and form that loop so we can tie a knot. Pull that end through and then just pull that tight. And now we're going to do the same with the new tail. We're going to tie it around the old tail. So we're just going to go around the old yarn and then form our knot and pull that tight. We're then going to hold on to the old yarn here and the new yarn here and just pull so those knots come together, and then you want to give that a really good tug to make sure it's nice and secure, and then you can trim off those ends very close to the knot and these won't come undone. There you go. So now what we can do is we can redo that final stitch, so it's a double crochet into the top of that chain 3 like so, and as we do that last pull through, it changes colour in exactly the right place, ready for the next row. So now we chain 3 and turn, and this time we've got 1 stitch at the beginning from the previous row, so we're going to work into this first space here with just 1 double crochet like so, and then we're going to work 3 double crochet granny cluster into each space across until we get to that last space. So that's 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochet in each space across. So we're going to put 1 double crochet into this space and then our last double crochet into the top of that chain 3 like so, and then chain 3 and turn. And in this next row we can see the previous row we had 2 stitches, so we're going to do a full granny cluster straight into this first space. That's 1, 2 and 3, and we're just going to work across with the granny cluster in each space, and once you get to the end of the row you're just going to finish with the double crochet into the top of that chain 3. Now sometimes it can be a bit tricky to get into the top of that stitch, so sometimes I might put my last stitch in between instead of into the top of the stitch. If you're making a blanket and you're going to be adding a border, you're not going to notice those edges anyway, so you can totally do that. And if you don't like having knots in your crochet, that's fine. Not everyone likes having knots, so you can just change colours and weave in your ends the usual way. But the knots do appear right at the edge of your work, so if you're adding a border on top of that, it will get completely covered up. I have many patterns and tutorials that use the granny stitch, and if you're looking for your next granny stitch project, I will link them all below. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye now.